Hey, Bills Mafia. We know there's only one topic every day. All Bills, all the time. And now Matt Beauvais and Sal Capaccio are going really deep, talking Bills all year long, because it's always game day in Buffalo.
Hi, everybody. Welcome into another It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. Sal Capaccio, Matt Beauvais, and we are overlooking Highmark Stadium up in the beautiful press box. How does this press box compare to most in the league?
Very nice. I think that this is one of my favorites. Seattle a couple weeks ago was pretty elite. There's a few that are open air, so they're out and you actually hear everything that's happening in the stadium. Detroit, where we're going in a couple weeks, is cool. But as far as actual press box location and amenities, the Bills have a very, very high-end, top-tier one.
This, by the way, just to show you what he means is this is a sterile press box where there's no – here, I'm going to weave you around here. There you go. Take a look. So that's what the press box looks like from here. And that's why I love being on the field, is because I get all the sound. You guys, you can hardly hear anything up here because the windows are they enclose you in so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's quiet. It's weird. When you watch the Bills get a touchdown, you know there's a roar that's happening outside, but you really don't hear anything in here other than the Buffalo Bills touchdown, 22 yards, Josh Allen to Ray Davis, Bills lead 7-0 or something like that.
All right, let's start. We have a lot of news to get to on this Wednesday before the Bills are on the practice field. Now, typically on a Wednesday, Matt and I will hear from Sean McDermott at noon, and then the team is on the field at 12:30. McDermott went a little bit earlier today. They're having a walkthrough, so there's no media. That's why we're able to do this when we're doing it today. Not that it matters to you wherever you're watching or listening, but we had a little extra time because there's no media to watch any practice, and then we'll be able to talk to players after practice. All right, let's start with the injury news to Keon Coleman. I think that's what everybody was waiting on. Were you encouraged or discouraged about what Sean McDermott said?
I think,
and maybe you can tell everybody what he said.
I think surprisingly encouraged. Now, Sean McDermott said that they are taking it day by day with Keon Coleman and his wrist injury. Then he was asked if he is considered day-to-day because he is missing practice today on Wednesday, the walkthrough. He will not be out on the field with his teammates. And he said, well, we still need to evaluate, and basically said it's something that could potentially extend beyond this week, but he didn't put a timeline on it. Here is me reading between the lines, and you can tell me if I'm right or if I'm wrong. We don't know exactly what's up with Keon. It sounds like he's probably going to miss this week, and my guess is that maybe that extends to next week. But then with the bye week after that, I bet they're trying to figure out if they need to put him on IR or if there's something that could be better within the 3 weeks after the next 2 games and the bye week. So I think it's going to be something that sidelines him for a game or 2, and then there's a chance we see him back out there. But given the weird nature of wrist injuries, that seems like it's on the better end of the spectrum.
Okay, I would agree with all of that, but I don't want to give false hope to anybody for one reason, and that is because it's very possible Sean McDermott just does not want to put a definitive he's out long-term timeline, and until he knows he's out long-term timeline. I'm not positive on this, but if I remember back, I think it might have been like that with Matt Milano. Like, yes, it's a leg injury. They're doing the testing, but I mean, he did have surgery right away, I think, in London. There was someone this happened with, I think. They didn't know for sure. And then later in the week, we found out, guess what? He's not going to be available for quite a long time. So I just want to be careful about that. But I agree for him not to come out, rule him out already, which he's done this year on players. And even Juwan Smoot already had surgery, right? Mm-hmm. I think I would lean more on the side of encouraging, but agree with you, long shot for this week, maybe even the next week. Then you get the bye. That's 3 weeks before he doesn't play, and you get a full month there.
Yeah, and another little bit of good news is it sounds like Amari Cooper is probably going to be available. He will be out there on the walkthrough today. We'll practice on Thursday. So it feels like it's going to be, okay, Amari Cooper goes in, Keon Coleman comes out.
You think that? If he also said it was the same as last week, kind of, which he practiced and didn't play.
I think so, because I think they need him now. And I think he said after the game against the Dolphins that they were both him, Amari Cooper, and Christian Bedford were both kind of 50-50 coin flips. So to me, that tells me, okay, probably a safe bet that he'll be back this week. If they're both gone, they're going to be really digging to the bottom. It'll be Mac Hollins, Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, and then probably one last Jalen Virgil activation or something. They might be in a little bit of trouble. I also think it's a good sign that with the 2 open roster spots, they didn't add a wide receiver. And we'll talk about who they did add. But I think if they thought Keon was going to miss some time, they would have used one of those spots for a wide receiver.
Yeah, I think of it that way too, except for one thing. They have 4 on the practice squad, and they could play the elevation game for a while.
Yeah.
Tyrell Shaver's only been elevated once. Jalen Virgil's been elevated twice. They haven't used Deion Kane yet. KJ Hamler, if I remember right, I don't think he was elevated yet. So they could also do it that way. The numbers game. I agree with you in the big picture, big scheme of things. It sounds like that. I would wonder about Amari and Christian when he says, like, same as last week. They did practice last week. They didn't play. But, hey, you had a full week there. That looks obviously more encouraging now than it did last week at this time. They also did not add a defensive back, obviously. They only have, the guys they have on the corner roster and the safety roster, given what they did with Mike Edwards. Let's talk about that particular transaction and opening up a roster spot for the two new additions who happen to be old additions.
Yeah, so with Mike Edwards, there were a lot of people. Mike Edwards was a really popular guy in the comments, and people who called into the radio and people who commented on our show on Channel 7. And stuff,
here with me he was.
Right? Like, a lot of people were like, oh, why isn't Mike Edwards playing? Something went wrong. I mean, he got injured in the offseason, and then I don't really think ever got caught up to speed. He signed, it sounds like, with the Titans today. I think I saw that report before we came up here and recorded. If he was better than Damar Hamlin, I think he would have played. And I just don't think he ever got to the point where they felt more comfortable, whether that was a schematic fit, whether that was just a skill set that they have that they're looking for with their safeties. I have said on the podcast so many times, I feel like safety is a position where the Bills need to improve, but it felt clear to me that Mike Edwards was not the answer that they were looking for, and that's why I think they mutually just decided to move on from each other.
Yeah, let me expand a little bit. I agree with all what you said. He had shoulder surgery even before OTAs. So he was immediately ruled out of OTAs. We knew that wasn't going to happen. So he misses all of OTAs, minicamp. I think he did a little bit of work in minicamp, but nothing really on the field with the team. Then he comes back in training camp and he gets hurt. He hurts his hamstring. By that time, can we get a little bit of, praise to Damar Hamlin and what he was able to do?
Yeah.
Damar Hamlin had a good camp. We said that.
He had a good camp. Really good camp.
He had a good OTA, good mini camp. And you know what? I think he's playing well this year, to be honest. Is he Micah Hyde or Jordan Poyer in their prime? No. He's not a ball hawking safety. He's not this super athletic, freaky safety. You know what he is? A guy who understands the system, keeps things in front of him, makes tackles. I've seen some analytical grades, however you want to do with that, suggesting he's been actually really, really solid this year. Now, I understand and I agree that, hey, against a big team, Patrick Mahomes comes in with Xavier Worthy. Do you trust Damar Hamlin not to give up a play over the top? I'll say it this way. They put a rookie in. He got beat over the top. Damar Hamlin is held off Mike Edwards, and Mike Edwards couldn't see the field, to me, because of the injury coupled with Damar Hamlin's play.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that they liked what they've seen from Damar. I mean, Sean McDermott said on Wednesday that has been one of their more consistent positions on the defensive side of the ball. I think Taylor Rapp has started to play better, and I think Damar Hamlin has been a bit inconsistent, but there have been flashes. And when I say flashes, I don't just mean the interceptions, right? Those are going to be the things that everybody immediately points to. He didn't really do anything on either of the interceptions. It's all of the other plays mixed in that I think there have been some nice moments, but I also still think it's a position that they should address, and I do still think will address down the road, but obviously that's not something that's happening right now.
Okay, well, let's talk about that because you made some waves yesterday on your Channel 7 show.
Yeah.
What's your show called?
Leading the Charge, and I don't really think I'm making waves.
I had people texting me saying, Matt's saying that pretty definitively about Micah Hyde. Does he have inside info that Micah Hyde's – you said on the air, Micah Hyde is coming back. Yeah. Now, I watched it, though. He's given his opinion. Yes. But okay, let's talk about it. This is now to the point where I will say, said this all year, I am to the point where you are now, which is I would not be surprised. I'm not calling for it, not saying it's going to happen. As you know, I've said all year, maybe a November type of transaction. Now with Mike Edwards gone, now where we are after the trade deadline, I think it's much more in the window than I've ever believed that would be. I still don't know if it's absolutely solid or as far as I think you want to take it.
Yeah, that's probably fair. I just think that there's a lot of little clues here that we can put together, and it just kind of makes sense. Okay, let's look at the clues. Why don't we here? First off, we'll talk about these guys in a second, but they just brought back two players who they have familiarity with. Oh, look at that. The coaching staff in the front office has trust for players they have familiarity with. Micah Hyde has said, if I'm going to play, I'm going to play for the Bills. Are you retired, Micah? No, I'm not retired. Hey, Bills, do you have interest in bringing Micah back? Well, the door's always open. You know how we feel about Micah. Just feels like it makes a lot of sense. Also, there's some other reasons that I think that there's a realistic chance that it happens. I was giving my opinion on Channel 7 when I said that I think Micah Hyde is going to come back, and I think that it's going to happen sometime soon. Let me just put it this way. I'll be surprised, not shocked, surprised if he doesn't. I feel like if he didn't plan on playing, we would know by now that he has retired.
I don't know if I want to go that far. I think he's just out there and in case, and who knows, and leaving the door open. But either way, I am much more open to it now, like happening. I always thought this would be a late season type of addition, and we'll see if that's the case.
One other thing. Micah Hyde, I don't think was ever going to consider coming back if this team was 2-7. They're 7-2. They're going to be in the playoffs, and they've got a very realistic chance at winning, and that matters.
One more. Let me ask you this. If Micah Hyde picked up the phone this week and said to Brandon Beane, I'm ready. I want to play. I want to come play for you. You think it's just does not matter Brandon Beane is signing him? Is that yes or no?
Given the lack of depth they currently have at safety, I do actually believe that, because right now you have Taylor Rapp, you have DeMar Hamlin. After that, you've got Cole Bishop. Then what are you leaning into? Kareem Jackson at that point? I know Cam Lewis has some position flexibility that you could use there. I do think that if Micah, I think right now I would say I feel like the ball is more in Micah's court than it is in the Bills' court.
I would only agree if Micah would be willing to come back for a very minimum type of deal. And that's been always a big hang up for me. At his stage of his career with the injuries, would he actually want to do that?
I don't think the money will matter for a half-year contract or less than that. What I realistically think happens is like we said with the Keon Coleman injury, are 2 weeks, 2 games away from the bye week. This is just my guess, not a doctor, and this is not inside information. I think as we get up to the bye week, I think that's when we can start to have the conversation about Micah Hyde coming back, and when we can start to have the conversation about Matt Milano's 21-day window reopening and returning. Because I don't think they would do it before that, because that would count. The bye week would count. I don't think they'll do that. So that's why I think when they return from the bye, as they're getting ready for the 49ers game, that is the week of Thanksgiving, that's when I could see the 21-day window opening with Matt Milano. And it's also when I could see Micah Hyde coming back after Thanksgiving and then trying to go, a couple weeks of just getting reacclimated and then kind of easing his way back in.
All right. A couple weeks ago, we asked like the baby due date, right? For the Milano due date.
Yeah.
What you would give. And I was thinking around November 12th, because I always think it's weird. Are you going to put the 21-day window and open it up when they don't have practice the following week, which is leading into the bye week? I don't really know. But if you come back on Thanksgiving week, then now you're talking another 3 weeks. Maybe that would make more sense. What would you think? We're looking at a calendar, by the way. You can't see what we're looking at, but what day would you pick for a 21-day window to open?
November 27th. Couple of reasons here. First week of practice after the bye week. It's a Wednesday. That's usually when they have their first real practice of the week. That is
day before Thanksgiving.
Day before Thanksgiving. Also, my birthday.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, that'd be a nice birthday present for you.
It's easy for me to remember that I'm picking November 27th, but I do think that it's going to be right around after the bye week, because then those days don't count, and then you can start to. What I think they do is, like I think I've said this before on this podcast, I think they treat him like Trey, where Trey came back and Trey played 2 series. Then the next game he played like half the series, and then the week after that he was like 3 weeks later he was kind of a full go. If he comes back for that 21-day window, I think he probably misses the next 2 games, and then maybe it's like, okay, Lions game, some snaps, Patriots game, some snaps, and then Jets, Patriots, full go.
Quentin, Jefferson, and Jordan Phillips, both returning to the Buffalo Bills, as you alluded to earlier. These are guys who played with the Bills in the system for Sean McDermott, for Bobby Babich, obviously not his position. He's now the defensive coordinator. He was a linebackers coach, very familiar, obviously, with the locker room, with the players, with the system, what's asked of them, not having necessarily terrific years where they were. That's why they were on the street. That's why they were released. Was it Jefferson by the Browns and Phillips by the Cowboys, yes. Right? Okay. They re-sign with the Bills. Now, a lot of this is circumstantial. Dwayne Carter is out for at least 2 more games after being placed on IR a couple of games ago with a wrist injury. Dewan Smoot out at least 4 games being placed on IR with a wrist injury. But what can we realistically expect from these 2 players as they join a defensive line group that has struggled to stop the run at times this season?
You know what? Here's what I'm a little bit surprised by, honestly. I'm not surprised that they brought back these guys. I'm surprised that they brought them both back and immediately put them on the active roster.
I thought so too, except they do have those 2 open roster spots. So
have those 2, but
what would you do then? Would you sign Ilianku and Branson Dean instead?
I think I would have signed Ilianku, and then I would have tried to figure out which one do you think is more of an immediate impact player. And I don't know the answer to that, because I've seen a lot of people that have broken down film and read some stuff on what Jordan Phillips has been this year, and I just don't know how much he has left. he's always been the best version of himself here. So it makes you wonder if it's just kind of a system thing, and this is the system he's the most effective in. And it's been a while since I remember watching Quentin Jefferson play. So I don't exactly know what he is going to bring. I just think that they really do value familiarity with Sean McDermott's defense. And now Bobby Babich also.
Yeah, listen, they're also going to be facing some interesting teams coming up running the football, right? Starting this week, by the way, Jonathan Taylor and the Indianapolis Colts. And then you get the Kansas City Chiefs, who are running the heck out of the football every single game, even though they have Patrick Mahomes and without Isaiah Pacheco. That's what they're doing. That's their identity now. They're running the ball. And then Christian McCaffrey's back for the San Francisco 49ers. It looks like you have Detroit on the schedule, right? I mean, this is something the Bills are going to have to deal with as they go forward, as they manage some of these injuries, and they're looking to kind of really supplement their rotation with some of the guys out, and because teams are running the ball against them.
Think about the running backs that they have left. They've got Jonathan Taylor left. They've got whoever's running for the Chiefs. Let's assume it's Kareem Hunt at this point. Bye week. After the bye week, Christian McCaffrey. The next week, it would be Kyron Williams. The next week after that, it would be Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Then the next week after that, you got the Patriots, then Breece Hall again, and then the Patriots again. So like Ramondre and Gibson, but still like some really serious running backs coming up. I think that's a very big area of concern for the Bills. I do think whenever Matt Milano comes back, that will help, but that won't solve everything.
So I'm still getting people saying that they think that the way McDermott answered about Milano last week, they're discouraged. I'm like, no, you have to really take the full context. Both of us are in the same boat here. We're very encouraged. We both think Matt Milano's coming back. Yeah. I mean, like, I know that there was the quotes of Sean McDermott is holding out hope, or there was some hope. No, he answered a question specifically. Is there hope he's coming back? Yes, there is. And then he said it's different than last year, and we're heading in the right direction. That's what he said.
I also believe the week before he said that, like, they're planning on it. And then this was a follow-up to that. I don't want to, I'm paraphrasing, but I think Sean said something along the lines of, it's a matter of when, not if. And also, context clues, once again, he has been around and traveling with them, and that's usually a sign of a player getting a little bit closer to coming back. The minute we start to see him out on the practice field just hanging around like more is when I kind of think like, okay, he's probably getting pretty close.
Okay, one last Bills item, then I want to ask you something on the league. Tyler Bass, AFC Special Teams Player of the Week. Good for him.
Yeah, very cool. Confidence builder, right? And I think that that's what this kick will do. We've said it. We're not psychiatrists, but it feels like this would be something that would be really, really nice to kind of like lift you into, hey, I can do this. I can make these kicks. And that's why I think that this will do a lot for him moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. And even though he missed an extra point, he gets AFC Special Teams Player of the Week, because that's what happens when you have a walk-off 61-yarder and a 49-yarder on top of that. I think in a 40-yarder, right? So he had a nice week, and we'll see where it goes with Tyler Bass. You hope that does obviously give him his confidence back. All right. I was on a Baltimore radio station today asking me about Tre'davious White.
Oh,
and I said it this way. Look, he didn't come into the league as the biggest, fastest, strongest. He made up for it with his intelligence, his scheme fit, his technique, his high IQ. But there's only so much you can overcome when you have an ACL and an Achilles. All of that stuff can't bridge that gap when it becomes a little bit too much. And then I said, we love him in Buffalo. We love him so much. But the majority of fans would tell you, yeah, we love him. And if he wants to wear a Bills jersey again, that'd be great. But he's not going to help the Bills, and they were not interested. So that was my take on it.
Yeah, I think depth move for a player who I think you can rely upon, at least on the mental side of things. He's going to know the system. He's going to understand what they are trying to do. I do not think Trey White is coming back in and becoming a lockdown corner for the Ravens. I mean, that's obvious given what the price they paid to acquire him was. A 7th-round pick swap for the player, essentially. I think that it's a nice little depth addition in case you really get banged up at cornerback. That said, though, I'm not reading too much into it. Unfortunately, from the amount of Rams games that I've seen this year, which is only a handful, he had looked like a liability out on the field, at least right now. Now, I will say, took him a long time to come back from the first injury before he started to look like himself again, right? There was the injury. He comes back on Thanksgiving. For the rest of that year, didn't really look like himself. To start the next year, looked like himself for those first 4 games. Then he gets injured against the Dolphins. So maybe it's just taking him longer, but I'm not expecting a ton out of Trey White.
He was a healthy scratch on a team that is 30th in the NFL in yards per play allowed per pass. And he couldn't get on the field there, right? I mean, so that's what should be the expectations. However, I have very healthy respect for John Harbaugh, that organization, their coaching staff, and he'll be a scheme fit with them. They're primarily his own defense. He'll be great to have there and do exactly what he's coached to do. And maybe he'll see the field to help for depth purposes. But that is one of the things that is hurting the Ravens this year is their pass defense, as they have a very interesting game against the Bengals on Thursday night, which could go a long way in what's happening in the AFC North. Those teams really haven't played each other. In the meantime, the Bills visit an AFC South team, the Indianapolis Colts, who are trying to keep their season alive at this point. Joe Flacco now the starter going forward, even despite the game he had against Minnesota last week, which if you're a Bills fan, you look at Joe Flacco coming in going, okay, this is what, like, they're a lot better. He did not have a good game against the Vikings, which is a very aggressive, good defense. I don't really know. I don't believe, as I sit here, that Joe Flacco is some huge threat. I think to me, it's more about Jonathan Taylor in the running game. Yep. But if you talk to Colts fans, they haven't committed to that enough. They need to commit against the Bills to doing that. Otherwise, I think the Bills can take care of business pretty easily.
It needs to be the game script a little bit like the Dolphins used against the Bills, where you run the ball until they show you that they can stop it. And the Bills never really did do that against the Dolphins, made a couple big plays along the way. The difference, though, is that if you do stop them on one or two of them, then you're forcing a guy who's really not mobile into obvious passing situations. And that's when the bread and butter of your defense can step up. And that's the corners, right? If Christian Bedford is back, those are favorable matchups. I like Michael Pittman. I like Josh Downs. But, like, you trust your guys going against players like that, Taron Johnson as well. So to me, it's all this week about Jonathan Taylor. If you can contain Jonathan Taylor, you're going to win this game. If you can't, I think that there's a chance the Colts can win this game because their defense is good. Really good, and they can run the ball, and those are two areas of concern for me a little bit.
They can't stop the run. Yeah. The Bills need to run the ball too.
Yeah, the Bills need to run the ball, and they need to be effective in doing that. That said, though, they did a pretty good job against Aaron Jones. We did get to watch a lot of that game because it was on after the Bills got out of that game. I'm sure you're bringing up the box score right now.
No. I just want to look at the rankings because I believe they've had a tough time stopping the run.
Stopping the run specifically.
Yes.
I think the Colts are like one of those teams that is kind of sneaky just because on the road, they're kind of playing for, a reason to play. Not a reason to play, excuse me. They're kind of playing to keep themselves within striking distance. What is that? The 31st run defense in the NFL?
Yards per game.
Yes.
15th in yards per play, about middle of the pack.
Okay. So middle of the pack. So yeah, I just think this is a game the Bills should win. I truly do feel that, especially against Joe Flacco. But I will say, even though he didn't look great against the Vikings, I would be more concerned playing Joe Flacco than I would Anthony Richardson because I don't know how many mistakes Joe Flacco will make. And Anthony Richardson, I think you could have been, forced his hand into a couple mistakes.
Yeah, it should be an interesting game. That'll be in Indianapolis in a dome, by the way. It'll be fun. And it's a great place, a great city. We go to Indianapolis for the NFL Scouting Combine. Any Bills fans that are out there thinking about a road trip, I would highly recommend Indianapolis to visit that for a game. I believe there's a game. There's another game. Oh, the Pacers and Knicks are playing, I think, the same weekend.
Oh, no.
On Sunday before the game?
No, because it's a 1:00 game.
No, can't be that then. It's, man. Well, I was looking at something else. Oh, that's in Detroit, maybe. That's what it was. That's in Detroit in a few weeks. My apologies.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, so the Pistons are playing the...
Yeah, I think it might be the Knicks and Pistons. There was a game. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm screwing this all up. The whole point I'm trying to make is Indianapolis is a very, very good city to go to. Matt, you can look up the schedule. I can't here. But, and we know St. Elmo's, right? I mean, all the shrimp cocktail. But a really cool, it's a convention city. Great bars and restaurants, great places to eat.
Yeah, I love Indianapolis. I think it's a cool city. I don't think it gets enough credit. I think it's a really walkable, easy place to get to downtown. So looking forward to this weekend. A quick trip, though. Literally flying in the day before the game. And then I'm doing we're going to have to figure out the post-game pod because I'm flying out at 8:15 afterwards. So we're going to see how that goes.
Okay, I got it. They are playing the Knicks after the Bills play.
Oh,
okay. An hour after. Oh. The game, the Bills and Colts should end at 4. Knicks at Pacers at 5. Oh, that's a nice double dip.
There you go. Maybe you can get the team playing to not leave, and you guys can take a field trip to the Pacers game.
I'm not going to do it, but maybe if you want to. All right, Mike Robier is our producer. We appreciate him. Today, we appreciate you downloading, subscribing, giving us a nice review and like on any platform that you're listening to us here on It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. And of course, Sal Sports on the YouTube channel. You can see our smiling faces right here. Have a great rest of your week. Matt and I will talk to you again as the Bills get set to take on the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday.